So my name is Egija, as it was mentioned, and most of the people know me from the Ox Drive times that me and co-founders from the university, we were all course mates. So we co-founded Ox Drive, which was a Tesla car sharing, but then we sold it to Car Guru, and now we are on to a new venture. And previously, I was also the country manager of CDB Latvia, that most probably everyone knows that company at least. And before I start the whole journey and storytelling, I would like to tell that, inspiration is nice and good. It kind of helps, but let's be real, inspiration usually lasts a few hours, maybe a few days. In the best case scenario, a few weeks. Rarely does that happen. And so what actually, moves you forward is that first thing, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. It doesn't have to be very precisely that, oh my gosh, I want to do exactly this thing, but at least you know that you want to become millionaire or you want to become singer or whatnot. Then the second thing is that you make a decision. You just make a decision, you make a commitment to yourself and just move on. That's it. You don't think too much about it, you just make a decision, I'll do it, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And the third is the most important thing, and that's discipline. Without discipline, nothing works. When people tell me, oh my gosh, how do you get motivation every day, to push forward? Oh no, there is no motivation in many of the days. It's kind of like I wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do anything. I would like, to go and maybe work in a store or something, because I don't have the motivation, but I have the discipline. No matter how I will feel that day, no matter what has happened around, it may be something in your private life has happened, bad or not that bad, it doesn't matter. It's just discipline, you keep going, you know the task that you have to do, and then when you have the discipline, then you put around, the motivation, the inspiration, love for what you do, passion, everything else comes around that, and then you have this amazing pack that you have the discipline, which is the base, and then you have everything else, You listen to the podcast, you read books, you listen to inspirational stories, and all of that just complements the discipline that you need to have in order, to move forwards. So that's just like a first note, so that you know that just by listening to someone telling you a cool story will not really push you forward. That can only inspire, but you need the discipline to actually go forwards. All right, so let's go back to 2021 when me and the co-founders, at that time, friends, acquaintances, course mates, we met for lunch, and it was 2021, and one of the guys so if we count me, then the second guy, the third guy, he was insane Tesla lover. He was obsessed with Tesla and Elon Musk. He was just crazy, You remember sometimes, at least, when I was 15, then it was cool to have posters on the walls with your favorite singers and stuff like that. So it was almost that insane that even in his 28 years old, he would have posters of Elon Musk. So, and I came from CDB, so I had experience, developing car sharing. And at lunch, he was like, what if we would create Tesla car sharing? And we laughed a little bit about it because, just as a side note, to start a car sharing, you should have at least some 100 cars. And at that time, one Tesla cost around 40 plus K, which means we need around 4 million euros to start that crazy idea. So of course, none of us had 4 million euros. So we laughed about it, that yeah, it's cool, it's kind of like good idea, that it would be very nice because everyone else that is doing car sharing is doing it with more or less, that economy class cars, Toyotas and Peugeots and stuff like that. Of course, it'd be very cool that people can drive also Teslas. That at that time, like on 2021, literally, I think there were a few Teslas that you could count on your fingers, how many were there in Riga. But the next day, we were actually chatting and we started discussing, hey, but maybe it's not just a joke. What if we actually would try to implement it? Let's just try it. And so we did. We drafted an Excel sheet with all the costs that we could imagine, everything. From my experience, also not from my experience, but because still I was country manager, but I didn't build CDB, right? So I don't know what was the basis, how did they build it? But we put everything that we thought it's kind of like should be there on the list. We created the presentation. It wasn't perfect, but it was there. The presentation wasn't called Oxdrive. It was called Spaceship, because at that time we needed to come up with some name, but we didn't know that Oxdrive will be the name, so Spaceship sounded like, Tesla's, Elon Musk, spaceship, makes sense. And we started looking for investors. So how did we go about finding investors? LinkedIn, VCs, especially you're in this house, you have actually several VCs here in this house on the second and third floor. So we started presenting to them. We remembered that, oh my gosh, in my high school, I had a friend whose mom in her middle school was studying together with one of the richest persons in Latvia. Cool, my friend, I remember that your mom was studying together with this and that guy. Could she potentially set us up for a meeting? And actually it worked out. We went for a meeting with the guy at my friend's mom's house for dinner. She cooked dinner, and then we came, me and one of the co-founders, and then also came that guy to whom I was referring to, and also he invited one of his friends who was also an entrepreneur, successful. So we had dinner, and then I remember that, we tried to connect with her on this TV so that we could show the presentation, and there were no chairs. There's no stage where you can actually present. So I was literally just sitting like this, and then, so here it is. This is our idea. And it didn't work out. He didn't invest. He loved the idea, but as most of the investors for the 8 months said, great idea. We love it. It's green. It's something different. I see the spark in your eyes, the energy. We believe in you. You can definitely do it. But come back in a year's time when you have something done already. When you have revenues, come back then. And it was almost every single investor like that. We went to the banks. Sorry. We went to the banks. Of course, all the banks were like, cool, we need those quotas for the green business, but come when you have 2 years of balance sheet. We were like, okay, so that's not going to work. Then we went also to the alternative financiers, different ones that afterwards, in a few months' time, we heard that, they have been, closed down by regulators and stuff like that. So we also attended those. So we did literally everything until we finally found one company. So which means it doesn't always have to be a classic bank or classic investor. We found a company that said, yes, we will invest in you. And once we found that one investor, then few others followed. So in the end, we had 7 investors from Latvia, Estonia, and Austria. Austrian investor is the most interesting, I think, because that is actually, that was our supplier of IT systems. Because none of us was the developer, so we needed a supplier who actually develops the systems for us. And that was the supplier, and we found several, and we made them bid against each other because we asked, hey, you know what, we are short of 100K euros. Maybe you could invest? And they actually started thinking about it, so we made them bid against each other, and the one who gave the highest ticket to us, we went with that and became their customer as well. So it kind of it always shows that you can always ask. You shouldn't, there's sometimes this idea that you should push if someone says no, and then you keep pushing and you keep pushing. So I'm not a supporter of that idea. I'm a supporter that you can always ask. The person, the company can say no to you, and then you don't keep pushing, but you included him, her in the newsletter list. And then you update with what you are doing, how is your company doing, how is your startup doing. And then maybe in a year's time, that they might come back and they would like to give you more money than initially you asked. So don't push for it after they say no, but include them in your newsletter and send out news about every quarter or something like that, informing them what is happening. So yeah, then here just about the pictures. Eventually, we launched on June 30th, 2022. We launched the business, and we managed to become literally the most talked about car sharing in media. We were the most discussed. We were the one called celebrity car sharing. We had the highest utilization rate in Latvia among all the competitors that we have out there. No one believed that, but the data was, it was not our data. It was actually data that is done by the third party. There were days when it's like Saturday, for example, people are opening the app and they're calling you and asking, hey, I think your app has broken down because there are no cars. And you check actually the backend system and you understand that all 150 cars are out in the rentals. That is very rare case. So was this, the greatest success? No, of course not, because car sharing is a hard business. But those who didn't believe, in the end, we proved that even though the idea was in a very, very, market that is so saturated, you can still come out as number one in terms of, being the market leader, not in terms of profit making, right? We were not making the profits at that time, but you can still be, the most demanded, you can become popular. And for some investors also, that is important. It's not just that, hey, they would get back the money, but for them, sometimes it's also important that they can polish their PR by having you under their belt. So that also take into account when you're thinking about the idea that it's not just about the profits, but can you improve maybe that investors, if it's a company or I don't know, for example, angel investor, if you can somehow benefit him in different ways, polish her PR. That was also another way how we were, approaching some alternative banks that we knew that their PR is not the greatest. So we said that, hey, you know what? By financing us, you can actually improve your PR as well, that you are also financing good businesses and white rabbits. So in the end, yeah, we got the investment that we needed. We set 150 cars in the fleet. We had around 18 to 20, sorry, not 18 to 20, but 22 people working for us. The team was 22 around, yeah. We were 4 co-founders. We had a brand that was super popular, at least in some bubbles, at least in Riga, more or less, most of the people knew about it. And we didn't have big budgets. So we didn't have even 5,000 euros for a month to spend on marketing. It was more or less all done purely on ideas how to do something for free. For example, influencer marketing, only barter deals. We never paid any money because we didn't have the budget to do it, so we did everything on a barter level. We gave them a car to drive with, and they were, of course, showing it on Instagram. And what did it do for us? So we never took an influencer to boost our sales. We did that for the brand awareness. I don't believe that influencers can really bring you sales, but they can really improve your brand awareness. We cooperated with different events. For example, TechChill that is happening next week. Also, we didn't have a budget, for example, to advertise on TechChill, but we knew that they need cars to actually bring speakers from the airport to their premises, to the hotels. So we gave them cars for free and asked in return if we can put one branded car literally in front of the main entrance where everyone is walking by. And that was everything that we did. We looked for events and different possibilities where we can, do barter deals. And that is the way how we actually got forward. So we worked successfully for some 2.5 years. Successfully meaning it doesn't mean that, we had everything great and profits. In car sharing in general, this is like a reality check. You need approximately 200, 300, 400 cars to actually, start seeing real profits. With 150 cars in a market like Latvia, it is very hard. You can have good unit economics per car, but the fixed costs that you have for the whole fleet don't change if you, for example, have 150 cars or 250 cars, which means that if you have, let's say, 100K fixed costs, then divide by 150 cars or 250 cars, it's a huge difference, and that impacts the business a lot. So that is also that you have to be taken into account. So what happened after a while is that we understood that it's cool, business is kind of like growing here in the market, but if we want to go further, we need more cars. What does more cars mean? More millions infused into the business. Because it's like still 30, 40K cars, and if you buy 2 cars, nothing changes. No one feels even a difference that you added 2 cars extra. So we got to a point where we understood that something needs to be done on a higher scale. So we had the idea, hey, let's combine, let's merge all car sharing and mobility companies that are here in Latvia. So we went to Fixie, we went to CarGuru, we went also to Tool, which is the scooter company from Estonia, and we all discussed this great idea that let's become one company. We would be the main guys who would keep kind of like pushing it all, and let's have it big, you know, because then it's a totally different game, because then we add their 300 cars, then we add 100 cars from Fixie, then we add 1,000 scooters from Tool. It's a totally different business, and then we could go also to a bank and show them that, hey, you know, these are totally different numbers, and also some of the companies were way older than us. But we understood in the end that we cannot get financing for that. Because, for example, if we would take CarGuru under us, we would need to refinance all of their cars. They had, for example, 300 cars, but at that moment still, classic regular banks were not financing us, which means we cannot take under us 300 cars. So eventually what happened is the first media title that CarGuru acquired Oxdrive. So that is in the end how we decided to move forwards, is that instead of us acquiring someone, that we did the other way around, that the older company, because CarGuru is 8 years old, it's a really decent already company, established company, so we did the other way around. And people ask me, was it hard, you know, to, for example, especially it was our baby, it was like the brand that, you know, people knew, and we felt that even all the employees were telling how proud they feel when they go back, for example, to their hometowns, and they were telling that, oh, I work at Oxdrive, and they were so proud, and they were telling all the stories that are happening there. So were we sad? On the one hand, yes. Oh, we went through all 5 stages of grief times 5, like at least 5 times all stages of grief. But in the end, we understood that, you know, when you are a business owner, you have to think whether with you and with no changes, that business can really move forwards and grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And after those 2.5, well, let's round it up, after 3 years, we understood that there needs to be a change. And in this case, we decided that that change will be that, you know, we get acquired by another company. And of course, it was, as I said, it was at some moments sad that, you know, that you have to give up the brand because at some acquisitions, founders have to stay in the business for a while. But in our case, it was different because the company that is buying and acquiring us is actually a company that is competing with us. So they know car sharing business same way as we do. So they didn't need, of course, you know, extra 4 people in the management. If they were only 3 people in the management, we would be 7 people managing one company. And of course, they didn't need that. So that's why this is one of the rare cases where after the acquisition, founders were free, you know, to go and launch the next business and do the next thing. And that is what we did. So on the next picture, you see actually the new team. So in 2024, August, we sold Oxdrive. That was when the acquisition was finished. So acquisition processes, they don't happen overnight or in 1 month. It took approximately, if fundraising took approximately 8 months. It took approximately also 8 months for us to finish the acquisition process. So it's a very, very long process anyway. And then after that, we decided that of course, we want to stay in the business. We can't imagine going back and doing something else than building our own business. But this time we changed and switched the industry. We were in mobility car sharing, now we are in energy. Are we the experts of energy? No, not at all. But during Oxdrive's time, we were fixing cars, and in order to decrease the cost of fixing a car and buying new spare parts, we started ordering damaged cars from Germany and used those damaged car spare parts as original to, you know, use for the cars that we needed to fix. So we were left with few batteries, and we thought what to do with those car batteries that are underneath the car. Should we just sell them? Well, we didn't do that. We actually decided that, hey, what if we would try to build battery energy storage system? Literally put batteries together, and then you can charge them up during the night when, for example, the electricity price is the lowest, and then discharge them during the day when the electricity price is the highest. So we started that small venture, you know, you see the picture on the very right. So that is our very, very first prototype. Those are the 4 batteries that kind of we were left with. And we decided to put them together, all the wires, inverters, you know, technology. We got an engineer who is a mechatronics engineer coming from the space shuttles actually. And now we are building not hardware just for the energy, but we are actually also building a software system for energy management. Because through that process that we went through Oxdrive, then through these batteries, we started researching the market and understood that there is a niche in energy market that we can serve. And that is how very often the ideas are born, that you start and do one project, you do one idea, you know, because sometimes people tell me that, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas. I don't know, I have this feeling that I FOMO, you know, that fear of missing out. If I will do this idea, then I will not do something else. And then I usually say that start with one which seems the most exciting. And then during the process, most likely, if that idea will not be the next unicorn idea, for example, as in our car sharing case, of course, car sharing most probably will not be the next unicorn, you will find the next idea. And that also proved right also in our case, that we found the next idea, which is an energy market. An energy market, when we checked all the numbers there, it's a totally different game. It's no longer about, you know, just 100 cars with a few millions. It's a business in which you have to work less, but you can earn way more than, for example, in car sharing business. But would we have found this idea without Oxdrive? No way. Like no way, because we didn't have any knowledge about energy as such. We weren't any engineers, so we would not have arrived to this idea. So never think that, you know, if the idea that you have now, you think it's not, you know, this next big unicorn, don't throw it out. Because you don't know what idea will come out of it when you will actually do it. Because usually what happens is that people work, for example, we have one very successful startup, Nordigen in Latvia, and guys actually previously worked in a bank, and they found, you know, a niche within the financial system. So they built a business out of that, but it also can happen as we did. Car sharing and energy in general, totally different industries. So we would not have thought that it can happen, but it can. So never throw out your ideas just because you think it will not bring you money in the first years. Of course, if you keep pushing the idea for 10 years and, you know, it doesn't bring you real success, you should think about it. So don't push it for too long, but definitely, like I always say, 3 years are the perfect time range in which you can see whether the idea and the business is sustainable, whether it's really kind of like will pay you off. So yeah, basically the main thing is that if you're going to become an entrepreneur, remember that the art of being an entrepreneur is literally the fact that you can keep going and doing even after the failure. Because most of the successful people have had several failures. And if you listen to, for example, Gary Vee, or if you have at least heard what Gary Vee says, he always says that only those who fall in love with the failure, with feeling love for the failure, will be the ones who will also succeed. Because if you will always think about what other people will think about me if I will fail, that's the classic default mode that we have in our mindset, then it will be very hard, because success takes risks, and risks take the fact that some people will, you know, tell you that, oh my gosh, you failed, oh my gosh, this didn't succeed, oh my gosh, what idea you have. But there is also a saying for me that I very often say is that other people's opinions will not buy you your dream car. Never, ever. You will be the only one who can buy you the dream car. Well, thank you very much, and I hope that something was useful for you. Thank you. Questions? Yeah?
Yeah. Dear girls and guests, you have this unique opportunity to ask me some questions.
If you have any. I told everything so perfectly.
I have a question about your educational background. Where did you study and what did you study?
So I have only bachelor's degrees, so I don't have master's. But I studied at Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. So there's, I don't know, is there anyone from SSE? Okay. So there is, you cannot really choose like a faculty. So it's just one school with one program, which is business, finance, marketing, HR, everything blended together. So in general, it's like a general education, but only bachelor's degree, and then you can do an EMBA, but that I haven't done. And usually for entrepreneurs, it's very hard to get back to studying after you have done the business. So no technical background, right? So no technical background. Basically, entrepreneur is glorified project manager, I could say so. Anything else? Everything is clear. Amazing.
Okay,
No, there's one more.
Was there a moment in your journey where you were at the edge of giving up? And what did you do in that moment?
Oh, so many times. Oh my gosh. It's like, the feelings are like this all the time. Because, for example, especially now when we are doing energy, trust me, it's so hard. There are so many legal things with the government. Is there anyone from the government here? There are so many things that are, in our opinion, wrong, but you have to deal with them, that sometimes it feels like overwhelming that you don't know those things, but you have sold already to the customer the solution. And now you have to deal with it. So many, many times I've had this feeling, also during the Ox Drive times, that we will not pull it off. But as I said, that's where the discipline kicks in. I feel that way from time to time. I just keep going. I don't care that I feel it. It's like, and it's okay. What I also remind myself, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel imposter. It's okay to feel that you are not good enough. It's okay that you don't know anything. It's okay to feel that, everyone else is doing better than you. It's just then okay to, give up. But it's okay to feel that way. And that is what I always remind myself. I allow myself to ventilate, to just, I go home, it's like, everything is bad and nothing is going to happen for me, and then I'm going to be a failure for the whole life. And then I just go back to work and keep grinding and keep doing. So it's just that, discipline over everything, that you just keep going no matter what you feel, no matter what someone tells you, no matter what you think. Right? It's just discipline. You just keep going, keep working. Okay, maybe on that day you will not be that productive, but you just keep going. And that's it. No other suggestion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, can we ask you a question?
Of course.
How is it for a woman to work in a seemingly man's world, in man's field? And have you faced any challenges with that?
This question I get a lot. And I have to say that I don't really have an opinion about it because I don't feel any difference, I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a woman in a man's world. I don't feel that. And I think that, again, is a mindset. How do you enter the room? If you enter the room full of men and you kind of like enter, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a woman. Most probably they're thinking now that, I don't know anything because I'm blonde and yada, yada. I don't care about that. I just enter. It's like, okay, guys, now this is how it's gonna work. So it's just all about how you present yourself, right? And most probably, I believe there are many who don't take me seriously, many who think that, oh my gosh, I better speak to her co-founder because he's a man. But then again, I don't care. And it's all that matters. And this morning I was listening to a podcast, Virziens, who is hosted by one of also Latvian startuppreneurs, Armāns Broks, and he had a conversation with Jelena Buraja, who is the CEO of Rietumu Banka. And he asked the same question to her, that, you are leading one of the biggest banks, the national banks. How does it feel? You're a woman, and there are so many men around. And she said the same thing, that she said, but I don't feel the difference between men and women, it's kind of like same thing. It's just how you present yourself. And she said that also when she comes into the meetings with her colleagues, then the clients sometimes look in the eyes of her colleagues because they're looking for the man who will be the CEO of the bank. And then they all realize that's actually her. But also she said the same thing that resonated with me, that it's just that she doesn't really, pay attention to that. It's kind of like it doesn't matter. We all can do everything. And it's just about your skills, about your mindset, how good you can do something or can do something, right? Men and women can be both excellent CEOs, excellent managers, excellent moms. Both can be excellent moms. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's truly inspiring. I got one last question. I know it's very typical in job interviews, but I'm interested. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So in general, as we speak with our co-founders, then in 5 years we are sipping mocktails on a Bali beach, and the business is rocketing and everything is happening, and we don't need to even be involved, and millions are just flowing into our bank accounts. So that's where we see ourselves in 5 years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that's it.